nicht, dass es echt betachlis Ashleimus und miyad heini golim betashtus.
Today is Isro Chag. We all know the year of the Rebbe to make a keynote Torah on Isro Chag, especially that by the Fabregim of Achrish of Pesach, the Rebbe is participating by making a special for the keynote, in status to the keynote in the special Sikha that the Rebbe started in the keynote, and also that the Rebbe sent special the whatever is there, they're bringing to give it by the keynote Torah. We have the honor today to have our Rav Bell, that is going to say the words the Torah for the keynote. Yeah.
Okay. Speak about what's the din Shulchan Aruch, which its application is not always so obvious, and in this particular case, there are enough things that we need to be careful about, and in particular, according to the Tzemach Tzedek has a chumrah. It's not such a usual occurrence that Tzemach Tzedek is chelek on a psak din in Machaber and Shulchan Aruch, and in Machmer, even more than Machaber and Shulchan Aruch. We'll speak about first what the din is, and then the Tzemach Tzedek gets a chance to speak about this also. And this is about the din of food which is in the hands of a non-Jew, that it needs to have a siman in order to be able to buy it. So, if you go to the store, you need a siman kashrus to know what something is packaged. It has to have a hechsher on it, so you could eat it or not. But how many seals do you need? So you have in Gemara Avodah Zarah, at the end of Lametes, Amud Aleph, Amar Rav, Chavis, it's a Rosh Tevis, we'll soon translate it. Chavis Aser b'cheisam echad, and Champag Mutter b'cheisam echad. Okay, so there's some things that you need 2 seals, and if you have only 1 seal, it's not sufficient. And there are other things that even 1 seal is sufficient. What are the things that you need 2 seals for? So it says chavis. The chavis whole discussion. The Gemara, the final conclusion of the Gemara is that the ches stands for chatechas dag, the piece of fish that does not have any scales on it. You can't identify what kind of fish it is. The base stands for basar, a piece of meat that also doesn't have any identifying trademarks. Yud is yayin. You don't know whether you can't tell from looking at the wine whether it's kosher wine or not kosher wine. And the tough is tcheles. Tcheles. You could switch the tcheles, the dye that you need for the tzitzis, could be switched with something else, which is similar in color. What are the things? So all of these 4 things you need to have 2 seals. What's champag? So ches is cholov, milk. Mem is murias, which is like fish brine. What do you translate murias? The pei is pas, is bread. And the gimel is gvina, is cheese. So for those 4 things, you need to have 1 siman. You don't need 2 simanim, but 1 siman you do need. And if you don't have that siman, so then according to Shulchan Aruch, you're not allowed to eat it unless there's some other extenuating circumstances which we'll speak about that might be able to eat things even if there's no siman whatsoever. So that is the din paskin Shulchan Aruch, that these 4 things, chavis, which is basically, the Gemara says that really a piece of fish and a piece of meat is just 2 different types of meat. So that you need 2 simanim. Tcheles we're not going to talk about. It's not really so relevant today, although we learn a very important halacha from the din of tzitzis. But yayin is also, you need 2 simanim. And then other things, with the Shulchan Aruch paskins, like the Rashba, what is the difference between the things that you need 2 simanim and the things you need 2 seals, the things you need 1 seal, is the Isra mid'araisa mid'rabban. There are 3 different shittas about what's the difference between the chavis and champag. What's the difference? So the Shach asks, why does the Machaber only quote one of them? Because it says that you should be machmer according to all 3 opinions. But in any case, what's recorded in the Mechaber is things which are midrabanan, you need only one siman. So Cholav is a gezeir midrabanan, Gevinas akum is a gezeir midrabanan, Pas Palter is a derabanan, Murius is also midrabanan. So all of those things you need siman achad, whereas the other things, a piece of fish and a piece of meat, that's switched. If it's exchanged, and it's an issa d'araisa. So it's with chelis. What's with yayin? Stam yayinim is an issa d'rabban. But Rashi explains mitzad the chibas hanisuch. Therefore, machmer on the union of yayin, even though beker adin yayin is midrabbanan. But it seems from the poskim we're machmer to the other opinions also. Rashi says the difference between whether you need 2 seals or you need 1 seal is whether there's a substantial financial gain to be made from this. So things which are dami mikodim, they're worth a lot of money. If you switch, I mean, today the biggest fraud in the world probably is that of fish, and because there's so much of a financial incentive. So that clearly, according to Rashi, so that the Gemara says, Shulchan Aruch says, the chatichas dag, you need 2 seals. And basar, there's a big difference in price between kosher meat and non-kosher meat, and so on. So that's the way it's passed in Shulchan Aruch. That we say chavis needs 2 seals, and champag needs only 1 seal. According to the Rashba, that's because it's the difference whether it's midarais or midrabban. According to Rashi, is there a big financial difference or not a big financial difference? And also the opinion is brought in the Rav brings about the Gabaya, some other Rishonim also bring to Yerushalmi the difference whether it's al-yedei taruves or it's a davar be'en, but we'll leave it at that. So lemaisa we have things that al pi din you need 2 simonim or you need 1 simon. What happens if something which had supposed to have 2 simonim had only 1 simon? So we have many days in the Rishonim that b'diavad you can rely on 1 simon, even though really l'chatchila it needed 2 simonim. 1 simon you need, but 1 simon b'diavad would be good. L'chatchila you need 2, and although there are those that hold even b'diavad, you still need 2. But ikar adin, for reasons that we have time, probably won't, but we can get into why that is. But you can rely b'diavad even on one simon. Fine. So what throws a curveball in this whole thing is you have a Tosfos earlier in the Masech and Daf Yud Beis. What Tosfos brings that we're not concerned that a Nachri will switch the foods unless he's going to gain something. Stam lahachshel es Yisrael, we're not chayshid him till he's going to do something. Why should he do it? Just to be machshel yid? We're not worried about such a thing. And Tosfos brings a raya from a Gemara, talk about it in a minute, to say that if it's leinena b'chlipin, that if the guy does not gain anything, he has no hana from exchanging it, so then we don't have to suspect him. So this is something that the Torah brings this, and la halacha, and it's brought twice in Shulchan Aruch. It's brought, the Ramah brings it. At the beginning of Shulchan Aruch, the Mechaber doesn't mention it, but the Ramah mentions it, and he says if it's leinana b'chlipin, then even if it's something which would normally need 2 chsimas, we need to have 2 seals, but if it's leinana b'chlipin, so then you can rely on using it. Even if it doesn't have any simonim at all. We might have other considerations. You might have position the Salmin Ayin. You might have other problems with it. But as far as this din of simonim, you don't have to worry. And the Mechaber mentions it. It's interesting the context in which he puts it. It brings in a Mishnah of Samachtes. The Mishnah says that if you left a nachri in your store and you yet v'nichnas, so then it's your store, and he's like a guest in your store, so you don't have to worry. You don't have to be there the whole time, even if there's wine in the store. He's afraid he's going to get caught messing around with your wine, and even if it's Yetziv Nichnas, it's still good. And then the Mechaber adds at the end, and if he's ein and b'chlipin, then b'chlal, we're not worried that he's going to change it just in order to be machshel yid. We're not worried about such a thing. So the Mechaber basically, although you could argue and say maybe they're only talking about the case when he's in a store, he's on Jewish property, so to speak. And then in many proofs that you could be a machalik like that, but make it a din. The most of the poskim understand from the Machaber and the Ramah, both paskim like Teisvis, that if it's laying nana b'chlippin, you don't really need a siman. Now, is that only lechatchila b'diavad? That's a whole other discussion. But many poskim certainly hold that's even lechatchila. You don't need a siman. Let me just give you a practical. Many people ask this question. We'll just give you this as a practical application of this din. You go into IGA and they're selling baguettes. So I don't know data of baguettes, but it seems to be the baguettes are long French breads. Yeah, so they have a bag, a long skinny bag, and then the top always has to be sticking out. I don't know why, but as I does the Yefi, the Hidder, Russia, the Shvolta, basically something has to stick out the top, and that's how you do it, and that's how you sell it, which means you can't close the bag. So they're selling from a kosher bakery with a piece of paper which is totally open on top, and it says MK, whatever the bakery is, and there's a baguette, and right next to it are some treifa baguettes. Sometimes the treifa baguettes are really kosher baguettes and treifa bags, but it could be a treifa baguettes also. So here's a treifa baguette, and here's a kosher baguette, and both of them are open. Passes the fourth thing that you need some enough. What's the that it says that according to the Ramah, the guy doesn't gain anything. What's he going to gain? He's going to switch one bread. So that bread he could sell. What's the difference? You have extra bags come to the bakery with bread in them. You don't have any. You could say that if the guy, if you gave him some money, then the game's over. Then he can trade for bread, put the trade for bread, trade in the bag, and then he saves himself some money. Then he's not a b'chlippin. But if he's got to put another bag, if he wants to make some money, he's got to put another bread in it anyway. So what's the difference? He can only make a limited amount of money in that bread, the kosher bag. He has one sim and he can put it in there. So we say, so that is the heter. Why it is the MK allows this to be done, because the heter. Similarly, you have bags of bread, for example. You get a bag of bread from the bakery. So if you buy it at the bakery, and the bakery is from Yidden, so then, just like when you go to somebody's house, you go to somebody's house to eat and they give you a plate of food, it has to have a simon on it. I mean, there's a from Yidden is giving you the food. So it's not a problem. You're in their place. You go buy at the bakery, so everything's under the shus of the bakery. But if you go to a place like IGA, and then you buy a loaf of bread, and how do they close the bag? So there are two ways of closing the bag. You can close the bag with a tape, which is a simon, because you have to tear it in order to open it up. But some of them just have this plastic clip. And you could just take off that plastic clip, empty out that bread, put in another bread, and then put back the clip, and nobody would know the difference. So why don't you have to worry about that? There's a pass, and pass is one of the four things you need simon echad, and this is not a simon. This is to be, in order to qualify as a simon, it has to be something you would notice if it was broken, if it was replaced. So the answer is loinana b'chlip. But over here also it's the same thing. This is a little better. At least you have a little clip. Some tircha you have to do in order to, at least you got to take off the clip. Not too much of a tircha, you can take off the clip, put back the clip. Something he has to do. That's mutter, and that's the heter which is used for that. Now, when it comes to milk, and this is all people asking about Starbucks and things of this sort. So this is no question. It's a clear din in Shulchan Aruch. A clear din in Shulchan Aruch, and from the Gemara, passing clearly that chalav needs siman echad. It has to have a siman, and it's also without that one siman. And it's a whole discussion in the poskim. Oh, machlekas rishonim and achreinim. Why are we calling? If the problem with chalav, with non chalav Yisrael is Hashem, then maybe you'll mix into a tray of milk. So why are we calling that midrabanim and only requiring one siman? Maybe we should need two simonim. Oh, ganze trask in the poskim to resolve this question. Then maybe it should need two simonim committee. Okay, but whatever the case is, it's clear from the Gemara Shulchan Aruch you only need one siman. Whatever the explanation, different explanations in the poskim, but one siman it needs. What would be the heter you could use? The only heter you have is loinana b'chlipim. But over here, at the end of b'chlipim, what happens? The chalav Yisrael costs much more than the non-chalav Yisrael. And once you open up the bottle of milk, you run out of milk. So you could have like the oil of Elisha. You just keep adding. Without a miracle. The miracle, you have the one container of milk and it never runs out. Why? Because you pour out some of it and then you just fill it up with some chalav vacuum. And who would know the difference? You can't tell the difference from looking at the milk. There's no way to tell from looking at it. Just like v'chatichas dat, if it has scales on it and it's from the original, although it's known in China, sometimes they have what's called a kosher patch. You have on the end of the fillet, they leave a little piece of skin. So some of the chashem have found that they skinned completely the fish and they glue back the skin in China. You have to soak it. Mashkichim have to be. But in any case, if you can recognize the thing itself, it has scales, so then you don't need a simon at all, because you can recognize the thing itself. But the milk, so once if it's still a closed container, so then it has the simon. A simon kashrus on it, it's sealed. There's nothing you can do to change it. It only has one seal. You break open the seal and tap in a milk bottle, okay, but it only needs one seal. Olive only needs one seal. But once it's open, then it has no seal, and it's befeidish nana b'chlipim. He saves himself a lot of money. And he gains money because the Yidden are going to come in and they're fooled into thinking that they're drinking Chol of Yisrael and everything's kosher. Aside from the other problems in these other places, how they're washing the kelim together in the same sink as treifes, Polavakum, and different things of this nature. All different sorts of problems eating in these places, even taking a black coffee in these places. But that's as far as the milk is concerned. There was used to be a mashkiach from Avad, so on the way to New York, so people stopped at New Baltimore. New Baltimore used to have a bottle of Chol Yisrael milk over there in the Starbucks. Every time he went, he asked him to open up a new bottle. He was a good mashkiach. You know the din over there, and he knows it's worthless. You have a bottle over there, open bottle of Chol Yisrael. What is that worth? It's worth absolutely worthless. So he'd always ask him to open up a new bottle. What he did about the coffee was another. They have another way around that, but a component that is. So the heter of loy nana b'chlipin works for the bread, but in our world does not work for milk. So it's clear there's no heter for that in Shulchan Aruch, because you need some echad, and there's no way around that. There's an opinion that says we're not really chesed nachrim, we're only a Yisrael chashud we're worried about, a yid was a tzamum or something like this. But la'alacha, we would worry about a case like that, in particular because it's on the property of a nachri, because we have a din, lagabe yayin, and as far as yayin is concerned, even if you have, used to be, the Gemara describes a case, you have a nachri, and he has a vineyard, he wants to make wine, he wants to sell it to Jews. So he knows if he makes the wine, the Jews are not going to buy it. So what does he do? He says, listen, you have my wine press over here, I'm cleaning out, you cash whatever you want, I'm disappearing, you take possession of my chutzner, and you can put as many chesimas as you want, a chesem v'tech chesem has 2 chesimas, and he seals up the whole place. So the Gemara says it's also. Why? Because it's on the Nachri's property. Even chesem v'tech chesem doesn't help. The Yid has to stay on the property the whole time. He has to be a shamer and he has to remain there. So therefore, over here, it's on the property of the Nachri, so any of these other Hatadim don't seem to. Okay, that's all as far as it is in the Shulchan Aruch. Comes along with Tzemach Tzedek. They have to be in the Katzer, yeah? I'll just give you an account of the Tzemach Tzedek. It's an Orach Chaim, Simon, Nun Hay, and just by the way, in case anybody hasn't noticed it, Mamish, phenomenal that he saw of the Shilas and Shuvah Tzemach Tzedek, is Mamish Tzazah, Shena Arbet. So every time he brings down Mount McCamus, and Tzemach Tzedek is always bringing Mount McCamus, they bring down on the bottom. This is what the Tesu said, and here you have to run after the Chuvas Marit. This is what Chuvas Marit said. They put everything on the bottom there, and it's broken up into Ketoim with headlines, the Keplach in order, and keep track. In any case, the Tzemach Tzedek says, he goes back and he says, everybody's basing this loy nana b'chlipin on this Tesus over here. He says this Tesus is very, very questionable. The Tesus. So Tesus brings a raya. What's Tesus's proof? Tesus brings a raya. Daf Lamed Dalet. It says that when you're transporting murias is the fish brine, from one place to another, you don't have to worry about it. It doesn't need to be sealed. Why? Because in that place, you're worried that they would add wine to the murias. Okay, so that's the problem. The wine is going to be stam yainim. It's going to be awesome. It's not yain. Much of the Masechta Vayda is all about yain. Over there, you don't have to worry. Why? Because in the case they're talking about over there in the Gemara, Daf Lamed Dalet, the wine is 4 times more expensive than the murias. What kind of a sugar would put wine in the murias? If the wine was cheaper than the murias, and then you can make more money, you put in some wine. You're worried that they're going to expand the volume of the final product by putting in yain. But The Tzemach Tzedek puts it that Nechshad al-Pachas Mishava Pruta and Nachrim. So why in the world he's going to spend 4 times more money for something that doesn't make it taste better and it's going to make him lose money? Why would he do such a thing? So what kind of proof is it that you don't have to worry about it? Leinana b'chlippin. You have leinana b'chlippin like this. It might gain you money. It's nana b'chlippin. Okay. If you don't gain money, but you don't lose money, that's leinana b'chlippin. Then you have it could lose money. That's not leinana b'chlippin. That's the nizak b'chlippin. You're going to go in exchange and you're going to lose money. So how in the world are we learning from? How does Taisus learn from the Gemara Daf Lamed Dalet? The din of leinana b'chlippin from the Gemara and Daf Lamed Dalet, where that's a case where you lose money. How is that a proof? Okay, we don't suspect him he's going to do something to lose money. But maybe we do expect him to do something to Yavi Machshel Diyid. And therefore, the Tzemach Tzedek brings from the Rashba is Taka Machmer. Even the Rosh brings it down, Yerushalayim should be Machmer. He brings down the Teisves, but he says Yerushalayim should be Machmer. The Rashba Chal doesn't agree with it. Then Tzemach Tzedek says later on, he came across the Knesset Agdela on Beis Yosef, and he says, he gives a whole list of poskim that disagree with this Teisves. L'maisa, he does not want to rely on this Teisves. And the whole tshuva over there in Tzemach Tzedek, just wrap up the loose ends. A lot more to say on this, but the Tzemach Tzedek was talking about a case. Somebody was bringing flour, which was shmura, from one place to another, and then there were transportation problems, iskalkol haderech, and he had to leave all the flour, with the trucks full of flour for Pesach, and he had to leave it by a hotel, Achsanya, over there, it's a non-Jewish Achsanya. So he found a place that had a roof, so it shouldn't rain on top. And then he put some sacks on top of it, and they nailed it down, and they tried to tie some knots. And then they left, and he came back a month later. Comes back a month later. Can he use it for Pesach? So the Tzemach Tzedek says, no, this is midiraisa, you need two chesim techek. But let's see what we can do. B'shas had chak b'diyed. That's the whole tshuva the Tzemach Tzedek is trying to find. Sniff him to sort of piece together a heter, and eventually he put together, by analyzing the way that they tied it down, he said, certainly you can call it one seal, and really the Tzemach Tzedek makes a strong case you could even call it 2 seals. Okay, but this heter he mentions at the end as a sniff to put together, and he doesn't want to rely on. It's also brought down in a tshuva in Yeredeya, I think it's Kuf Samach Aleph, we're talking about filling up a mikveh. So everybody knows you're filling up a mikveh, you lock it so people don't come in over there, nothing could come in and empty out some water over there. So once happened, the mikveh was left open. So what's with the mikveh? So in the end of the tshuva, he mentions that also what's brought down over here in Shulchan Aruch, Kuf Yud Ches, the same siman in Shulchan Aruch Yeredeya, that it says if it's leinana b'chlippin, then you don't have to be chesed that the nachar is going to change one for another. So he mentioned that also as a sniff, and that's also a shemaim shuvas midrabanan. He does mention it as a sniff, but to rely on that, lechatchila, the Tzemach Tzedek is clearly not happy with it. He brings down many others who asked the same shayla. The Gilim Marsha on the page of the Shulchan Aruch asked the same question. What kind of proof is this from Taisus? Pri Chodesh, many mafarshim asked the same question on Taisus. How's Taisus bring a raya leinana b'chlippin as a heter with his Gemara doesn't prove that at all? And Tzemach Tzedek goes, if one answers like this, and he slugs out that teretz and this teretz and that teretz. Tzemach Tzedek's not happy with any of the terutzim. L'maisa, what this means is, lahalacha, according to the Shulchan Aruch, the baguettes and the loaves of bread with the clip on it are kosher al pi Shulchan Aruch. But it would seem, according to Tzemach Tzedek, either better to buy it in the Yiddish bakery or to buy one with the tape on it. So then that's taka chesem echad, like it says in the Gemara and like it says in Paskin Shulchan Aruch. And especially, there are people in the world that they buy only in places that are all kosher stores. And leider, this year, many people were nichshel. They moved around the Pesach things in the YGA from one place to another. And a lot of people were nichshel, not reading the labels properly, not looking to see whether something was kosher to Pesach. So it's always important to read the labels, and it's also important to know what constitutes a label. So Tigul Mitzvah Shleimes gab zum Rebbe gibt mehr Namen Steuer a guten Konsum zahlen.